Hey, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. Elliot Harper sat in the corner of Maple Brew Cafe, the soft golden light of a Vermont autumn streaming through the window, casting a glow on the open laptop in front of him. On the screen was an email from his sister Sarah, with the subject line, "Elliot, don't let mom make you a Tinder profile." He pushed up his glasses and sighed. At 42, as the CEO of a medical tech company, Elliot could write code that saved lives. But facing the annual Harper family reunion, that was a puzzle he still couldn't solve. This year's gathering at Sarah's farm in Vermont was for their father's 70th birthday. The entire clan would be there, from aunts who loved telling war stories to TikTok-obsessed nieces and nephews. And his mother, with her mix of affection and relentless curiosity, had already declared that if Elliot showed up alone, again, she'd personally set him up with Susan from book club. Elliot shuddered. Susan had a passion for cats and sent daily cat photos via email. "I don't need a girlfriend," Elliot muttered, clicking open a new browser tab. "I need a plan." A few minutes of searching later, he stumbled across Vermont Event Pals, a service that offered event companions for social functions. No romance, no strings, just someone to appease the family. He scrolled through profiles, a yoga instructor, a piano teacher, then stopped at Clara Bennett, florist and event host. Her profile read, "I bring flowers, good energy, and the ability to make any gathering less awkward. P.S. I can talk about plants if you run out of conversation." Clara's profile photo showed a woman around 40, with gently curled brown hair, a warm smile like autumn sunshine, and eyes that sparkled like they were holding onto a cheerful secret. Elliot frowned. She looked too real, not like someone who did this professionally. Still, he clicked contact, sent a brief message, and booked a meeting. The next morning, Elliot arrived at Maple Brew 15 minutes early, choosing a table near the window for a good vantage point. He wore a navy blue dress shirt, slacks, and a scarf he'd chosen after watching a middle-aged men's style video on YouTube, though he still wasn't sure he tied it correctly. On the table lay an interview-style list of questions he had typed up the night before, including, "Do you have experience pretending to be someone's girlfriend?" And, "Are you allergic to dogs? My family has 3. This was a transaction, he reminded himself. Professional, clear-cut, emotionless. The cafe door opened, and a woman walked in, bringing with her the scent of autumn leaves and carnations. Clara Bennett wore an oversized cream sweater, jeans, and worn leather boots, carrying a small hand-tied bouquet, white daisies mixed with red maple leaves. Her hair was loosely tied back, with soft curls escaping naturally, and her smile seemed to brighten the whole room. Elliot blinked, forgetting all about his list. She didn't look like an event companion. She looked like someone you'd want to invite on a walk in the park. Clara spotted him instantly and waved like greeting an old friend. "Elliot Harper? Did I guess right? You've got that fresh from a Zoom meeting vibe." She pulled out the chair across from him and set the bouquet on the table. "I brought this to break the ice. Daisies, they symbolize beginnings. See? I'm very professional." Elliot cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. "Thank you for the flowers. Very, thoughtful." He slid the list of questions toward her. "I've prepared a few points to discuss. Regarding your role at my family's gathering." Clara glanced at the paper, her lips curling into a mischievous smile. "Oh wow, what's this? A job interview sheet? Can you pretend to like country music?" She laughed, her voice ringing like a bell, drawing a few curious glances from nearby tables. "Elliot, you're adorable, but relax. This isn't a NASA interview." Elliot felt his cheeks warm. "I just want to make sure everything's clear. This is a business arrangement. I need you to play the part of my girlfriend for 3 days. The reunion's in Vermont. My family's complicated." Clara tilted her head, sipping her latte. "Complicated how? Like, your mom's going to ask me about wedding plans? Or your cousin's going to dare me to chug a beer?" Elliot blinked. "Both. Possibly. My mom is very enthusiastic, and my cousin Jake once tried to make me play beer pong last year. I lost. Miserably. Clara giggled. See? Already sounds fun. Tell me more. What do you like? Besides being a super serious tech CEO, what do you enjoy? Don't say coding. I'll yawn. Elliot hesitated, unaccustomed to being asked about himself. I like reading science books, and, I have a pet fish. His name is Steve. He paused, realizing how pathetic that sounded. But Clara didn't mock him. She nodded like he'd just said something fascinating. Steve's a solid name. I bet he's proud to have you as an owner. Okay, Elliot, I'll take the job. I need the money to upgrade my flower shop, and I like a good challenge. But one condition. You have to loosen up. No lists, no scripts. Let me work my magic. Elliot looked at her, half skeptical, half intrigued. Magic? What do you mean? Clara winked. I mean, I'll make your family love me, and maybe you'll even like me a little too. Who knows? She pushed the bouquet toward him. Here, take this. Romantic training starts now. Over the next hour, Clara turned the meeting into a masterclass in ease. She told stories about her flower shop, like the client who ordered 100 roses to apologize to his girlfriend's dog, and how she once tried painting but quit because life kept interrupting. Elliot, stiff at first, found himself laughing more than he had in recent memory. When Clara teased him about the scarf, "It looks like you tied it using an algorithm," he even replied, "I watched a video." Clearly chose the wrong difficulty setting. As they parted ways, Clara promised to meet him at the train station for the trip to Vermont. She waved, the bouquet left on the table like a reminder of her presence. Elliot picked it up, gave it a sniff, and noticed his heart beating a little faster than normal. He pulled out his phone and searched how to act natural at family gatherings. But in his mind, Clara, with her messy curls and infectious laugh, was all he could picture. This is just a transaction, he reminded himself. But as he sat in the taxi heading home, Elliot couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in years, he felt hopeful. Elliot Harper stood at the Amtrak station in Burlington, Vermont, holding a small suitcase in one hand and a to-go coffee cup from Maple Brew in the other. The autumn air was crisp, red maple leaves scattered across the pavement, and the sound of a distant train whistle echoed through the morning. He checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes, trying not to show how nervous he was. Today was the day he and Clara Bennett, the fake girlfriend he'd hired, would travel together to his sister Sarah's farm for the Harper family reunion. Just the thought of introducing Clara to his mother, famous for her uncanny ability to read people, made Elliot want to open his laptop and code just to calm down. He scanned the area, looking for Clara's curly hair and radiant smile. Since their cafe meeting last week, Elliot couldn't deny Clara had an unusual kind of energy, like she carried sunlight with her, even on the cloudiest days. But this was a transaction, he reminded himself. Clara would play his girlfriend for 3 days, charm the family, and they'd part with a professional handshake. Or maybe a wave. He hadn't decided yet. Elliot, don't tell me you were planning to board without saying hi, Clara's voice called out from behind him. He turned, and his heart skipped a beat. Clara walked up wearing an olive green knit coat, a plaid scarf, and a worn backpack with a few daisy stems sticking out of the side pocket. She wheeled a small suitcase behind her, decorated with a sunflower sticker. Almost missed it because I had to water the shop. My cactus needs affection too, you know. Elliot blinked, unsure whether to respond about the cactus or the sunflower sticker. You brought flowers? He asked, pointing at the daisies. Clara winked. Always, just in case your family needs a bit of autumn vibe. Come on, the train's here. Let's go, fake boyfriend. She patted his shoulder and the light touch startled him. Elliot fumbled with his suitcase, trying not to spill his coffee. On the train, they found a pair of seats facing each other by the window. The car wasn't crowded, just a few passengers reading or scrolling through their phones. Sunlight streamed through the glass, casting golden patches across the seats. Clara immediately made the space her own. She pulled out a bag of homemade cookies, a notebook, and a pencil with a little bee topper. Pumpkin cookies, she said, sliding the bag toward Elliot. Made them last night. Try one and stop looking so serious. Elliot picked one up, took a bite, and momentarily forgot he was supposed to maintain a professional demeanor. These are really good, he said, surprised. You made these just to bring along? Clara shrugged. Life's short, Elliot. If you can take cookies with you, why wouldn't you? Now tell me about your family. I need to know who's going to ask me about our baby plans and who's going to pressure me into drinking apple cider. She doodled a wonky flower in her notebook, but kept her curious eyes on him. Elliot cleared his throat and pulled out his phone, opening a note titled Harper Reunion, Key Info. My family is large. My mom, Margaret, loves asking questions. My sister Sarah's hosting the reunion, and she'll want to know everything about you. Cousin Jake, 25, may challenge you to something dumb like ring toss, and my dad, Henry, will want to play word games all day. Clara laughed. You made a file about your family? Oh my God, Elliot, you're a treasure. Okay, time to get into character. How did we meet? I need a story for your mom. Elliot hesitated. He hadn't thought that far ahead. At a tech conference. Clara scrunched her nose. Boring. Nobody falls in love at a tech conference. How about this? I dropped a flower pot outside my shop, and you helped me pick it up. Very romantic, very Vermont. She raised her eyebrows, daring him to disagree. Elliot blushed. I'm not sure I'm the kind of guy who picks up flower pots. Maybe I'd write an app to do it for me. Clara burst out laughing, the sound echoing through the train car. Okay, fake boyfriend, you get humor points. But seriously, you need to practice looking at me romantically. Try it. Look at me like I'm the most amazing person you've ever met. Elliot blinked, unsure if she was joking. He looked at her, trying to summon a romantic expression, but it ended up resembling a software bug check. Clara covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Oh, wow, Elliot, never mind. We'll work on it later. Now tell me, do you have any secret hobbies? Like salsa dancing? Beekeeping? Elliot shook his head but couldn't help smiling. No salsa, no bees. I like hiking, occasionally, and I watch space documentaries. Not very secret, but perfect, Clara interrupted. I'll tell your mom we fell in love while stargazing on a hike. Super dreamy? She scribbled something into her notebook, then looked up with a softer expression. Actually, I love stargazing too. When my mom was alive, we used to lie in the backyard and count shooting stars. Sounds silly, but it's a beautiful memory. Elliot was quiet, moved by her sincerity. He wanted to ask more, but didn't know where to start. It's not silly, he said finally. It sounds very real. He gazed out the window at the passing Vermont fields and realized he wanted to know more about Clara. Not for the family event, but for himself. The train made a brief stop at a small station, giving passengers 15 minutes to stretch their legs. Clara pulled Elliot outside, insisting on taking a photo beside a brilliant red maple tree. Call it training for your family's Instagram, she said, raising her phone. Elliot stood stiffly, unsure how to pose. Clara ran over, grabbed his arm, and snapped a selfie. Smile, Elliot. It's not a passport photo. He managed a smile, and Clara looked at the screen, nodding in approval. Not bad. You've got potential. She showed him the photo. In it, Clara was beaming, and Elliot looked like he was trying not to spill his coffee. But there was something in his eyes, a hint of warmth he hadn't noticed before. As they boarded the train again, Clara asked suddenly, Why are you so nervous about this reunion? I mean, your family sounds kind of fun. What's bothering you? Elliot hesitated. He wasn't used to sharing personal things, but something about Clara made him want to try. After my divorce, I haven't been good at being around family. They care, but I feel like I've disappointed them, especially my mom. She wants me to be happy, but I don't even know what that looks like anymore. Clara looked at him gently. Happiness doesn't have to be big, Elliot. Sometimes it's just a pumpkin cookie or a photo under a maple tree. She touched his hand lightly, just for a second, but it was enough to make Elliot's heart race. When the train arrived at the Vermont station, Clara jumped off, pulling her suitcase behind her and inhaling deeply. Smells like autumn. You ready to be an amazing boyfriend, Elliot Harper? She asked, her smile as bright as the golden leaves. Elliot stepped down, still holding the cookie bag she'd given him. I don't know about amazing, he said, but I'll try. He looked at her, and for the first time, he thought maybe this reunion wouldn't be as awful as he'd feared. Maybe thanks to Clara, it would be a brand new beginning. The Harper farm in Vermont looked like a postcard of autumn. Golden red hills blanketed in maple leaves, a faded red barn, and a large farmhouse with smoke curling from the chimney. As Elliot Harper stepped out of the rental car, the chilly air carried the scent of fermenting apples and wood smoke. He adjusted his scarf, still unsure if he'd tied it right, and glanced at Clara Bennett, who was halfway down the gravel path, her suitcase clattering behind her. She spun around with her arms wide, taking in the view like a child at a county fair. "Look at this place, Elliot. It's like a Hallmark movie." Clara, in her olive green coat, blended with the autumn colors, her curls glowing under the sunlight. "I bet there's a pumpkin patch around here somewhere. Come on, tell me, there's a pumpkin patch, right?" Elliot gave a tight smile, nerves buzzing like buggy code. "Probably behind the barn. But Clara, we need to focus. My family's waiting, and they're going to have questions." He pulled out his phone and opened his updated Harper reunion. Key info note from the train. "Stick to the story. You dropped a flower pot. I helped pick it up and—" "Elliot, breathe." Clara turned back and placed her hand gently on his arm. The touch was brief but warm, like a spark in the cold air. "I've got this. I'll charm your mom, win over your sister, and probably outdrink your cousin. Trust me." She winked and tugged him toward the house before he could argue. The door swung open, and Sarah, Elliot's sister, appeared in a striped apron, her blonde hair tied up. "Elliot, you made it!" Her eyes landed on Clara, breaking into a grin. "And you must be Clara?" "My gosh, you're even prettier than," Elliot said. Come in, come in." Elliot blinked. Had he said anything about Clara's looks? Had he? Before he could process it, Clara embraced Sarah like they were old friends. "Sarah, this place is gorgeous. And that apron? Iconic. Are you baking? Or is it just for style points?" Sarah laughed, clearly charmed. "I bake, but half the batch usually burns. Come meet everyone. Mom's dying to see Elliot's mystery girl." Elliot followed, stomach nodding. Mystery girl. Right. This was it. Clara had to convince his family they were in love, even though they all knew he was the guy who once forgot his own birthday, fixing a bug in his code. He braced himself for disaster. Inside, the farmhouse was a cozy mess of Harper chaos. The living room smelled like cinnamon and roasted vegetables, the fireplace crackling gently. Family members were sprawled across sofas and armchairs. Elliot's mom, Margaret, knitting a scarf. His dad, Henry, flipping through a crossword book. Cousin Jake scrolling his phone, and a mix of aunts, uncles, and kids running everywhere. A golden retriever named Biscuit came bounding over, nearly knocking over Clara's suitcase. Clara knelt to scratch Biscuit's ears. "Well, hello there, sir. Elliot, you didn't tell me about the real VIP of the family." She looked up and smiled so brightly Elliot felt a strange twist in his chest. Admiration, maybe. Panic, definitely. Margaret set her knitting down, eyes sharp as she studied Clara. "So you're the one who got my son smiling again. Come here, let me look at you." Her voice was warm but inquisitive, like a detective sizing up a suspect. Clara rose without flinching and extended a hand. "Mrs. Harper, it's a pleasure to meet you. Elliot's told me all about your famous apple pie. I was hoping to get the recipe, but honestly, I'd be thrilled with just one slice." Her smile could melt November frost, and Margaret's stern face softened. "You certainly know how to talk. Call me Margaret. Elliot, where did you find this girl?" Elliot cleared his throat. "We, met when she dropped a flower pot outside her shop. I helped pick it up." He recited the story like reading from a script, praying Clara would jump in. She did, eyes twinkling mischievously. "Exactly, a total rom-com moment. He heroically saved my daisies, then asked me out for coffee. I couldn't resist the glasses." She bumped her elbow playfully into Elliot, making him blush. The room chuckled, and Elliot realized Clara wasn't just acting. She was making him look good. Sarah clapped her hands. "All right, dinner prep time. Clara, come help me in the kitchen. Elliot, set the table, and don't overanalyze the fork placement." As Clara followed Sarah, she whispered to Elliot, "See? I'm crushing it. Hang in there, boyfriend." Her smile was contagious, and Elliot nodded, heart racing. Dinner was a cheerful riot, a long wooden table overflowing with roasted turkey, pumpkin salad, cornbread, and Margaret's apple pie. Clara blended in like she'd been a Harper forever. She swapped stories with Jake about ridiculous clients. She once had someone request a bouquet shaped like a pickup truck, while Jake knew a drunk guy who serenaded a burrito. She helped Margaret explain the difference between marigolds and gerberas to a curious aunt. And when Henry kicked off a word game, Clara nailed the state flower of Vermont, red clover, and earned a high five from him. Elliot watched, half in awe, half uneasy. Clara wasn't just being liked. She was bringing the whole family to life. Even Jake, usually glued to his phone, was laughing out loud as Clara described a wedding where the bride's dog ate the cake. But every time Clara looked at Elliot, smirking, teasing, calling him darling, right, babe, his chest tightened. This is pretend, he told himself. She's getting paid. So why did it feel so real? After dinner, everyone headed to the backyard for square dancing, a Harper tradition. A local band played fiddle and banjo under string lights, and Sarah herded everyone onto the lawn. Elliot tried to sneak off, mumbling something about checking email, but Clara caught his hand. "Nope, you owe me a dance, Harper." "I don't dance," Elliot protested. "I have no rhythm. I'll step on your feet." Clara's eyes sparkled. "Then step on them. My boots are tough. Come on." For the fake romance story, she pulled him into the dancing circle, ignoring his stiffness. The caller shouted, "Spin your partner!" "Step to the side," and Elliot stumbled like a malfunctioning robot. Clara laughed, gently guiding him. At one point, he tripped and she caught him, their faces inches apart. "You're not that bad," she teased, her breath warm. "Just a little challenging." Elliot flushed. "You're too kind. I'm like a walking syntax error." She laughed brightly, and for a moment, the music in the crowd faded. It was just the two of them, swaying beneath the Vermont sky. Then Jake whooped, breaking the moment, and Clara twirled away, pulling Elliot back into the dancing chaos. The second morning at the Harper farm began with soft golden sunlight streaming through the autumn mist, blanketing the maple-covered hills in a crimson glow. Elliot Harper awoke in the guest room on the second floor, the smell of coffee and cinnamon waffles drifting up from the kitchen. He lay still, listening to the chirping birds and the laughter of his nieces and nephews outside. But his thoughts had already wandered to Clara Bennett. Last night by the fire, she had talked about her mother, about counting shooting stars, and how she took over the flower shop to keep her mother's dream alive. Her words, "Maybe you just need someone to remind you to look up," still echoed in his mind like a line of code he couldn't debug. Elliot sat up, adjusted his glasses, and looked out the window. Clara was outside in a cream-oversized sweater, playing ring toss with the kids. She laughed out loud when one missed and dramatically fell over to make them giggle. Elliot smiled, a warm feeling blooming in his chest. Clara wasn't just good at pretending to be his girlfriend. She made everything brighter. But this was a transaction, he reminded himself. Tomorrow the reunion would be over, and Clara would return to her flower shop. So why did it feel like he was about to lose something important? Downstairs, his sister Sarah was plating waffles while their mother, Margaret, stirred a pot of apple compote on the stove. "Morning, Elliot," Sarah said, raising an eyebrow. "Where's Clara? You two were practically glued together last night." Elliot blushed, fumbling for a coffee mug. "She's playing with the kids. I'm not glued to anyone. We're just—" "Oh, please," Margaret cut in, her eyes twinkling. "I saw how she looks at you. And you, Elliot. This is the first time I've seen you smile like that in years. Clara's a gem. Don't screw it up." Elliot nearly choked on his coffee. "Mom, there's nothing to screw up. We're just friends." Even he didn't believe the words as they left his mouth. Thankfully, Clara walked in at that moment, cheeks pink from the crisp morning air. "Good morning, everyone," she said cheerfully. "Those kids out there are future Olympic ring toss champions. Sarah, those waffles smell amazing. Need a hand?" She glanced at Elliot and winked. "Or should I drag Mr. Serious out to loosen up a bit?" Sarah laughed. "Clara, you're brilliant. Take him to the pumpkin patch. We need a few good ones for the pie. Elliot, don't just stand there like a lamppost. Elliot started to protest, but Clara had already grabbed his hand. Let's go, fake boyfriend. Time to showcase your pumpkin picking skills. The pumpkin patch was tucked behind the barn, a small clearing filled with round orange gourds scattered across the grass. The autumn air was crisp, and Clara practically skipped along with a woven basket in hand. Look at these, Elliot. Perfect for pies, lanterns, everything. Have you ever carved a pumpkin before? Elliot shrugged, hands in his coat pockets. Once, when I was a kid, it looked more like a defective watermelon than a pumpkin. He watched Clara kneel to inspect one, unable to suppress a grin. You really love this stuff, don't you? Clara looked up, pushing a curl from her face. Of course, pumpkins are the spirit of fall, fun, warm, and a little messy, like life. She picked one up and handed it to him. Here, we need at least 5. And don't pick one that looks like it was generated by AI, okay? Elliot held the pumpkin, pretending to run diagnostics. Shape, acceptable. Color, standard orange. No errors detected. He glanced at her, waiting for a reaction. Clara burst out laughing, clapping her hands. Oh my God, Elliot, you just made a joke. I'm so proud. Keep this up and I'll have you doing stand-up before we leave Vermont. She nudged him playfully and the light touch made Elliot's heart flutter. They wandered the patch, collecting pumpkins and talking. Clara shared stories about her flower shop, like the customer who ordered an apology bouquet for his girlfriend's dog, and how she once tried painting but gave it up because life kept interrupting. Elliot, usually guarded, found himself talking about his early days as a CEO, coding through the night and the numbness that followed his divorce. I think I'm better at working than living, he admitted, his voice low. Clara stopped, her gaze soft. You're not just your job, Elliot. I saw you with the kids yesterday. How patiently you explained the game. And the way you blush when your mom teases you. That's living. She smiled, and Elliot felt something melt inside him, like ice in the autumn sun. That afternoon, the Harpers held a family activity, pumpkin carving in the yard. Everyone gathered around a big wooden table with carving knives, spoons, and their freshly picked pumpkins. Unsurprisingly, Clara was the center of attention. She taught the kids how to carve smiley faces and told a story about the time she accidentally carved a cat that looked more like a potato. Jake, Elliot's cousin, challenged her to carve the Instagram logo, and Clara nailed it with impressive precision, earning cheers from the entire table. Elliot sat beside her, struggling to carve a simple star. His knife kept slipping. Clara leaned over and gently guided his hand. Easy there, hero. It's a pumpkin, not a code base. Her breath was warm and smelled faintly of apples and carnations. He fumbled and dropped his spoon, making her laugh and drawing attention from the whole table. You two are so cute, Sarah teased. Elliot, the last time you blushed this hard was when your 8th grade crush passed you a love note? I never got a love note, Elliot muttered, but Clara leaned in and whispered, just go with it, babe. We're Vermont's hottest couple. Her smile made him forget how to respond. That night, after the family retreated indoors for a word game, Clara and Elliot stayed out on the porch, sitting side by side on a blanket-covered swing. The Vermont sky glittered with stars and the scent of firewood drifted in from a nearby fire pit. Clara held a mug of hot cocoa. Elliot cradled a cup of tea, and neither of them spoke. But it wasn't awkward. There was something easy and right about it, like they'd done this 100 times before. Do you ever think about going back to the stars? Clara asked, looking up. I mean, you once wanted to be an astronomer. What stopped you? Elliot thought for a moment, fingers circling the rim of his mug. Life, I guess. Work. Responsibility. After the divorce, I just wanted stability. But sometimes stability feels like standing still. He paused, surprised by how much he'd shared. What about you? You talked about painting. Why not try again? Clara shrugged, her gaze distant. Fear, maybe. Fear of not being good enough. Of failing. The flower shop is safer. It was my mom's dream, not mine. But sometimes I wonder who I'd be if I dared to dream big. She looked at him and smiled. Maybe we both need someone to push us out of our comfort zones. Elliot looked at her, starlight dancing in her eyes. Maybe you're right. You, you've been pushing me out of mine. I'm not sure I like it. He chuckled softly and Clara laughed with him, but there was a charged stillness in the air, like a note waiting to be played. Then the mood broke into laughter again. Clara pointed at his scarf, now dangling like a limp ribbon. You know, she said, I bet you learned to tie that scarf on TikTok. Admit it, I won't laugh. Elliot blushed but grinned. Okay, yes. It was a style tips for men over 40 video. Clearly I failed. Clara nearly spilled her cocoa laughing. Oh my God, Elliot, you're a treasure. I'll teach you how to tie it properly. Tomorrow. Tonight I'm too busy stargazing with you. She leaned back into the swing, and for the first time Elliot didn't feel the need to plan what came next. As they stood up to head inside, Clara linked her arm with his, a gesture both scripted and strangely real. We're doing great, hero, she whispered. But you know what? I think I like the real you more than the scripted one. Elliot paused, heart pounding. He wanted to say something, that he liked her too, that she was unraveling every carefully coded line in his life, but he only nodded and smiled. As they stepped back into the house, laughter echoed from the living room, but for Elliot, it was Clara's voice, soft as autumn wind, that lingered in his mind. The final morning of the Harper family reunion dawned bright with autumn sunlight, but inside the farmhouse, the air felt as heavy as a storm cloud. Elliot Harper stood in the corner of the living room, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee, his eyes fixed on Clara Bennett as she played a word game with his father, Henry, and the kids. She laughed brightly, as if the world were still perfectly fine, but Elliot felt like a storm was brewing. Last night on the porch swing, Clara had told him she liked him off script more than in character. That one sentence had sent his heart racing, but also terrified him, because it was all built on a lie. Today was his father's 70th birthday, and the family was preparing an outdoor celebration with apple pie, pumpkin lanterns, and a small fireworks display. Clara had blended perfectly into the Harper family, from helping his mom, Margaret, prepare the pumpkin salad to carving lanterns with the kids. But Elliot couldn't shake the unease. Every warm glance from his mother, every affectionate shoulder pat from Sarah, reminded him that they were falling for a version of Clara that wasn't real. A girlfriend he had hired from a website. Elliot, you look like you spent all night debugging, Sarah said, walking over with a tray of cookies. Clara's got the whole family wrapped around her finger. Mom even wants to invite her for Christmas. You okay? Elliot nodded, but his voice was tense. Yeah, just, tired. He glanced over at Clara, who was teaching one of the kids how to fold an origami crane, and felt a painful tightening in his chest. He wanted to tell the truth, that Clara was a transaction, not a girlfriend, but every time he opened his mouth, her smile stopped him cold. By noon, the whole family had gathered outside to set up the party. The wooden tables were draped in checkered cloths, string lights twinkled above, and the scent of baked apples filled the air. Clara, as usual, was everywhere, helping Sarah set the tables, tying balloons with Jake, even convincing Henry to try a little square dance warm-up. Elliot stood near the fire pit, pretending to check his email, but his eyes never left Clara. She wore a burnt orange sweater, her curls loosely tied back, and the way she laughed with the kids made him wonder, how could someone fake it this well? Then trouble hit, sudden and sharp like a gust of fall wind. Jake, Elliot's social media-obsessed cousin, sat in the corner of the yard scrolling through his phone. Suddenly he shouted, "Wait, what is this?" Everyone turned as he held up his phone, brows raised in surprise. "Clara, do you run an event companion service out of your flower shop? I just found an old Instagram post." Time stopped. Elliot felt the blood drain from his face. Clara, in the middle of tying a balloon, froze, her smile fading instantly. Margaret nearby frowned. "Event companion? What do you mean, Jake?" Jake, oblivious to the bomb he just dropped, read the post aloud. "Need someone to make your event less awkward? Clara Bennett brings flowers, smiles, and positive vibes. Contact Vermont Bloom Flower Shop." It's from 2 years ago, but are you, like, professionally hired for this, Clara? Sarah turned to Clara, confusion in her eyes. Clara, what is he talking about? Did he mean you were hired to come here? Her voice was soft, but hurt laced every word. Clara opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She glanced at Elliot, her eyes filled with panic and apology. Elliot wanted to step in, to explain, but his feet felt rooted to the ground. Margaret stepped forward, her voice firm. Elliot, Clara, one of you needs to explain what's going on. The party air turned heavy. The kids kept playing, oblivious, but the adults stood still, waiting. Clara took a deep breath and straightened. Yes. I do run an event companion service. Elliot hired me to pretend to be his girlfriend for this reunion. I didn't mean to deceive anyone. I just wanted to help him get through the family pressure. I'm sorry if I hurt anyone. She spoke with sincerity, but her confession was like a stone dropped into a still pond. Sarah shook her head, disappointed. Elliot, you really did that? Hired someone to fool us? I thought you had changed, that you were finally opening up. Margaret looked at Elliot, her eyes more sorrowful than angry. Son, all I've ever wanted is for you to be happy. If you're not ready, I won't force it. But this hurts me. She turned and walked toward the house, and Elliot felt his heart seize. Clara bowed her head, her voice barely a whisper. I shouldn't have come. I'll pack my things and leave. She turned quickly, heading toward the barn, the place she once said was her favorite because it was quiet. Elliot stood there watching her go, feeling like the whole world was collapsing. It took Elliot half an hour to find Clara in the barn, where autumn light filtered through the wooden slats. She was sitting on a pile of hay, knees hugged to her chest, eyes red but trying to stay composed. A nearby horse whinnied softly, as if offering comfort. Elliot paused at the door, unsure where to begin. He'd never been good with emotions, but looking at Clara, the woman who had made his family laugh, made him laugh. He knew he had to try. Clara, he said, voice hoarse, don't go. This is my fault. I shouldn't have hired you. I shouldn't have let it get this far. Clara looked up, wiping her eyes. No, Elliot, I agreed to this. I thought it was just a job, but I started to like your family. I started to like you. And now I've ruined everything. She gave a bitter laugh. I'm great at lighting up a room, but just as good at blowing it up. Elliot stepped closer and sat beside her, leaving just enough space between them. You didn't ruin anything. You made my family happy. You made me happy. I hired you because of my mom, because of the pressure, but I want you to stay for me. He paused, surprised he had said it out loud. I'm not good at this, Clara. Feelings, vulnerability, but you make me want to try. Clara looked at him, her eyes shining, but she shook her head. Elliot, you don't have to say that just because you feel guilty. I know this wasn't real. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, Elliot said, his voice firmer now. You told me I needed someone to remind me to look up. You're that someone. When you play with the kids, carve pumpkins, talk about your mom, I see a world I'd forgotten. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Silence fell, broken only by the horse's breath and the rustling leaves outside. Clara smiled faintly, but her eyes still held doubt. Are you sure, Elliot? I'm kind of a mess. I talk to plants, I love flowers, and I can make you blush with just one joke. Elliot laughed, genuinely this time. I'm a guy who codes all day and owns a fish named Steve. I think we're a perfect match. He reached out, lightly touching her hand, and Clara didn't pull away. That small gesture, fragile but real, felt like a promise. They returned to the yard as the Vermont sunset bathed everything in gold. The family was still there, though the tension had eased. Sarah rushed over and hugged Clara. I'm sorry for how I reacted. I just want my brother to be happy. Please stay. Whether you're his girlfriend or just a friend, you're part of this weekend. Margaret stood nearby, her expression softer. Clara, you made the kids laugh, got Henry to dance, and brought my son back to life. Hired or not, you were real to us. Stay and have some apple pie, will you? Clara smiled, eyes glistening. Thank you, Margaret. I'll stay, for the pie, and for all of you. She glanced at Elliot, and he smiled back, feeling like the final line of code had just compiled perfectly. As fireworks lit up the night sky, Elliot stood beside Clara, their shoulders touching. She whispered, "We made it through, fake boyfriend. But now what?" Elliot took a deep breath, locking eyes with her. "Now we try it for real. No scripts, no contracts, just me and you." He took her hand, and Clara gently squeezed back, her smile brighter than the fireworks above. The final evening of the Harper family reunion at the Vermont farm glowed under a star-filled sky, with flickering jack-o'-lanterns and lingering sparks from Henry's birthday fireworks. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of baked apples and wood smoke, but the farmhouse radiated warmth. After the storm stirred by the revelation of Clara's secret, that Elliot had hired her to be his fake girlfriend, the Harper family had embraced her, inviting her to stay not just for the apple pie, but because she had truly become one of them. Yet for Elliot Harper, things still felt unresolved. He stood on the porch, slowly swirling a cup of hot cider in his hands, heart racing as he watched Clara Bennett. Clara, in her burned orange sweater and plaid scarf, was in the yard helping the kids hang the last of the paper lanterns. Her laughter rang out, blending with the autumn breeze, and Elliot couldn't look away. Last night in the barn, he had told her he wanted her to stay, not for his family's sake, but for his own. Saying those words had felt like running a piece of code he'd never dared to execute before. And Clara's response, a smile filled with warmth and skepticism, a gentle hand in his, left him both hopeful and afraid. This wasn't a transaction anymore. This was real, and Elliot, who once thought love was a program long closed, now had to decide if he was ready to start again. Sarah, his sister, stepped out onto the porch with a folded knit blanket in her arms. "You look like you're about to deliver an earnings report," she teased. "Clara's fine, Elliot. Mom adores her, Dad wants her back for the next crossword night, and Jake's trying to learn how to tie a scarf from her. So, what are you going to do?" Elliot took a breath, eyes still fixed on Clara. "I don't know. I'm not good at this, Sarah. Feelings. Love. I hired her to avoid complications, and now I'm the one completely tangled up." Sarah smiled and patted his shoulder. "You don't need to be good at it. You just need to be real. Clara's not looking for a perfect plan. She wants you, messy parts and all. Don't let her leave without telling her." She nudged him. "Go. The party's about to start, and Dad wants a big speech. Make it count, little brother." Elliot nodded, feeling like a programmer about to tackle the most complex code of his life. He stepped down into the yard, his heart pounding. Henry's official birthday party took place outdoors, with long wooden tables covered in checkered cloths, plates of apple pie and pumpkin cookies, and a local folk band playing soft tunes. String lights twinkled overhead, and the jack-o'-lanterns everyone had carved glowed like a storybook setting. Clara, as always, was at the center of it all. She helped the kids blow up balloons, cracked jokes with Jake, and even pulled Margaret into a quick waltz, earning a round of applause from the family. Elliot lingered near the drinks table, trying not to be too obvious as he watched her. Clara caught his gaze and threw him a playful smile. "Hey, babe, come help me tie this balloon," she called, making the whole family giggle. Elliot blushed but walked over, grabbed a balloon, and promptly dropped it. Clara laughed, reached over to help. "Oh my gosh, Elliot, do I need to teach you everything?" "Apparently," he muttered, but his smile was the most genuine it had been in a long time. Her touch, brief as it was, sent a quiet current through him. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. As the band paused, Henry stood up and raised his glass of hot cider. 70 years, not bad," he said warmly. "But what makes me happiest is this family, and the new faces like Clara, who've made today even more special." He winked at Clara, who smiled, her cheeks pink. Then Sarah, ever the mischief maker, stood up with a sly grin. "Before we cut the cake, I think Elliot has something he wants to say. Right, little brother?" She glanced at him, her eyes full of challenge. Elliot froze. Every face turned toward him, from Margaret with expectant eyes to Jake with an amused smirk. Clara tilted her head, her gaze surprised but open. Elliot drew in a deep breath, stood up, and shoved his trembling hands into the pockets of his coat. I'm not great at public speaking," he began, his voice uncertain. But I want to say a few things about my dad, about this family, and about Clara. The following autumn, the Harper family farm in Vermont was as radiant as the day Elliot Harper and Clara Bennett first met at the family reunion 5 years earlier. The hills were blanketed in red and gold maple leaves. The air was filled with the scent of baked apples, and the farmhouse was now adorned with white chrysanthemums, trailing vines, and pumpkin lanterns for a special occasion, the wedding of Elliot and Clara. At ages 47 and 45, they were no longer young dreamers, but their love, born from an awkward arrangement, had blossomed into a story the entire state of Vermont loved to tell. The farmyard had been transformed into an outdoor wedding venue, with white linen-covered wooden tables, jars of chrysanthemums, and maple leaves hand-arranged by Clara, and a folk band playing soft tunes. Elliot stood by the ceremony table in a navy suit, his scarf tied properly, thanks to Clara's patient teaching. But his hand still fiddled with a silver ring in his pocket, his heart pounding like the day he first confessed his feelings in front of the whole family. His sister Sarah, now the unofficial event coordinator, darted by and adjusted his tie. "Relax, little brother. Clara's not going to run. She even loves that fish of yours, Steve." Elliot smiled, but his eyes stayed fixed on the leaf-covered aisle where Clara would soon appear. "I just want everything to be perfect. She deserves that." Margaret, Elliot's mother, sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "My son finally found his light," she whispered to Henry, who nodded while holding a crossword puzzle book like a stress toy. Jake, now 30, was busy filming for Instagram, promising to make it trend with the hashtag #Harper Wedding. Then the band transitioned into a gentle melody, and Clara appeared. She wore a simple ivory gown with a sheer lace overlay and held a bouquet of white chrysanthemums and red maple leaves. Her curls were loose, dotted with tiny flowers, and her radiant smile lit up the entire yard. Elliot blinked, momentarily forgetting how to breathe. She wasn't just beautiful. She was Clara, the woman who had pulled him out of code and taught him how to live. As Clara reached him, she whispered, "Don't drop the ring, hero. I know you practiced all week." Elliot blushed but took her hand, feeling that familiar warmth. The officiant, an old family friend, opened with a joke. "I hear these two met thanks to a fallen flower pot and a tech app. Who would have thought?" Laughter rippled through the guests, and Clara winked at Elliot, a shared memory of their clumsy beginning. Their vows were simple but heartfelt. Clara spoke first, voice clear, eyes gleaming. "Elliot, you came into my life like a glitch, but turned out to be the best program I've ever run. You taught me to dream again, to redraw my life, and I promise to always remind you to stargaze, even as we grow old." Elliot, never great with words, took a deep breath and looked into her eyes. "Clara, I used to think love wasn't for guys like me. Awkward, fish-owning, and terrible with scarves. But you gave me a new world, where happiness doesn't have to be perfect, just real. I promise to keep trying to make you laugh, even if it's because I embarrass myself." The crowd laughed, and Clara wiped away a tear, holding his hand tightly. When they exchanged rings and kissed under twinkling string lights, small fireworks lit up the Vermont sky, and the Harper family erupted in applause and cheers. Jake shouted, "This part's totally going viral," while Margaret hugged Sarah, crying joyful tears. The reception continued with apple pie, pumpkin cookies, and a square dance that Clara insisted everyone join. Elliot, still clumsy, spun Clara under the lights, laughing as she mock-led him like a pro. "You're getting better, Harper," she teased. "I might have to enroll you in dance class." "Only if you teach me," he replied, pulling her closer. For once, he wasn't worried about getting the steps wrong. Later, they snuck off to the pumpkin patch, where it had all started. Under the moonlight, Clara leaned into Elliot, still holding her bridal bouquet. "We did it, hero! From fake girlfriend to this. What do you think about the future?" Elliot smiled, threading his fingers with hers. "I think it'll be messy, joyful, and full of flowers, and I can't wait to live it with you." They sat there stargazing, and Elliot knew that no matter how the world changed, Clara would always be his light. 20 years later, Elliot and Clara, now 67 and 65, lived in a small home near Burlington, Vermont, not far from the Vermont Bloom flower shop. The shop was now run by a young apprentice, but Clara still visited weekly to arrange chrysanthemums and share stories with customers. Elliot, retired from his CEO role, spent his days writing children's books about astronomy, a dream revived thanks to Clara. Steve the fish had long since passed, but they had a golden retriever named Biscuit too, who often slept by the fireplace. Their home was a museum of memories. A wedding photo framed with maple leaves, the first painting Clara made after years, a star field over Vermont, and a checkered scarf Elliot still kept, though Clara teased it looked like an archaeological relic. They had an adopted daughter, Lily, now 25, an artist like Clara, who often visited with stories of her Boston exhibits. One autumn morning, Elliot and Clara sat on their porch under wool blankets, sipping coffee and watching leaves fall. Clara, her hair silvered but her smile still bright, held a bouquet of chrysanthemums. "You know," she said, "I still think about that reunion. If you hadn't hired me, we wouldn't be sitting here." Elliot, now wearing thicker glasses, took her hand. "I'd have found you anyway. Maybe through a different app, but I'd have found you." He smiled, and Clara leaned on his shoulder, as they'd done 1,000 times before. They often returned to the Harper farm, now run by Sarah, for family gatherings. Margaret and Henry had passed, but their legacy lived on in stories, crossword challenges, and square dances. Jake, now an influencer, still showed their wedding video online, calling it the original viral love story. Lily, when visiting, often joked that she'd grown up with the weirdest parents, one who talked to flowers and one who talked to stars. At night, Elliot and Clara would lie under a blanket in the backyard, counting shooting stars like Clara's mother once did. "How many autumns do you think we have left?" Clara asked one evening, her voice soft. Elliot kissed her forehead. "Enough for you to teach me how to tie a scarf again, and enough for me to say I love you every single day." Clara smiled, and they lay there, under the Vermont sky, knowing their love, though born from a lie, had become the truest thing they'd ever known. True love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. Elliot and Clara began with a lie, a pretend relationship, but genuine feelings grew through honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to open up. Their story reminds us that happiness doesn't always arrive in the way we expect, but when we dare to be real, love finds its way. Sometimes the most authentic connections are born from the most unexpected beginnings. Embracing each other's flaws and uncertainties is what turns something temporary into something lasting and meaningful. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.